What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Gridiron Podcast. Mike, welcome back. Obviously, you were out sick last week, but welcome back.
Yeah, that was awful. I would not want my enemy to have what I had, Nick. I was bedridden from Wednesday through Saturday. I am glad that I'm here too. I'm still recovering, but I'm good enough to talk because last week I was not able to really talk without coughing. So at least I'm here. I'm able to talk without coughing. So this will be more enjoyable.
Yeah, and this is the first kind of official episode with both of us in the off season.
Yeah.
And a lot of cool stuff to talk about, so let's get straight into it. All right, we're going to start off with your Packers with their special teams coordinator stepping down.
Oh, man. Packer fans, that is the biggest news that we could have gotten, maybe for most of us, this offseason, if we were looking for one thing. How is Rich Bisaccia still employed? And there's a couple speculations going on that, he's 65 years old. Is it just his time stepping down? Or did the Packers organization tell him, we don't want you anymore, can you just step down? Without making it a whole thing about being fired, I suppose. The whole entire season, the special teams was awful. The past 2 years, he's been in Green Bay for 3 seasons, I believe, 3 or 4 seasons. And yeah, last season, it was just so obvious. There were so many problems. Stemming from, we had, our wide receiver ones returning kickoffs. We had the kicker missing problems. We had mismanagement. You name it. It was just horrible. And this was the right decision. I'm excited. I actually don't really know who's on the market right now for special teams. So I'm going to keep that, I'm going to wait to see who gets hired. I'm not going to make any speculations because honestly, I don't know. But as Packer fans, this is definitely a plus.
Yeah, and coming from a Lions fan, I know you were complaining about Brandon McManus for almost the entirety of this past season. And to see their coordinator kind of step down says a lot because they have had those struggles in terms of, you mentioned it, even people like Jaden Reed returning punts and just the overall, not doing well in special teams in any sort of aspect in it.
Yeah. Special teams for the Green Bay Packers has been disastrous for numerous years now. And it's time for new blood, and I'm glad because, Rich Bisaccia was, John Gruden's right-hand guy, but I don't know anymore if the old school technique works because I forgot what I was watching actually, but Bisaccia was with somebody in the Niners camp, I believe. I'm going to have to remember this correctly. Nonetheless, he was with somebody, right? Head coach now. And they said that Bisaccia is a guy who won't draw up any schemes. He won't do anything fancy. He won't do anything that'll bring something new to the special teams unit. More so, I guess, of just being a coach. So I'm glad that maybe we get a younger person or somebody who's more creative for that matter. But yeah, it's definitely about time. I'm super excited to see the special teams unit be better than last year, if not the past couple seasons. So this is a big move in the offseason.
Yeah, and moving on to my Detroit Lions. Now, I do want to wish a happy retirement to Rod Wood. He is retiring from the organization as the president and CEO. So, happy retirement to Rod Wood. But let's talk about something because I've been messaging back and forth with you for the last couple days with free agency. Now, I did see a mock trade and signing that has come in. Raiders receive wide receiver Jamison Williams and 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby, as well as signing wide receiver Tyreek Hill. I have also seen the fact that they are also targeting Joey Bosa, as well as Bradley Chubb.
Wait, in that Jameson Williams, did you say that the Raiders get how many first-round draft picks?
2.
Okay, so there are first-round draft picks plus Jameson Williams. I mean, in my opinion, he definitely is better than DJ Moore, especially with the age in his career.
I did also see one that was kind of floating around with, instead of Jameson Williams, they trade Amon-Ra St. Brown, which I don't see that happening, but I could see potentially with Jameson Williams, but it's hard to tell. But I do see them going forward with trying to get, whether it's Maxx Crosby or Trey Hendrickson's even been floating around a little bit, Joey Bosa or Bradley Chubb, recently released from the Dolphins.
I want to ask you because I think this is actually interesting. Now, let's put aside the Maxx Crosby edition. I just want to ask you, getting rid of Jameson Williams for the offense, do you feel comfortable with that? Who would be the receiver core at that point?
Yeah, so seeing potentially Khalif Raymond leaving in free agency, I don't like the move if they were to get rid of Jameson Williams, because I'd much rather have something like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and Isaac Tesla as the 3 wide receivers. But seeing that Petzing is now the offensive coordinator and he likes to utilize tight ends, it could be a situation where they run 2 wide receivers and 2 tight ends. It could be something very similar to what they had in Arizona. But in terms of Jameson Williams, he has had back-to-back years with 1,000+ scrimmage yards. I don't like the move if they were to get rid of Jameson Williams, because you just signed him to an extension, and really, if you get any of those players that I just named, you might only get them for 1 to 2 years just based on their age, compared to Jameson Williams, who's 24.
Yeah, right. Yeah, as a Lions fan, I know you're kind of in a win-now situation. You're competing in the NFC North still. But if you lose your wide receiver 2, I know you still have Laporta. I don't know. It just kind of seems that's a lot of problems, especially with, possibly David Montgomery being gone. Or, it just brings a lot of problems that I don't know if, even as a Packers fan for you, I don't know if I'd be comfortable with that receiver core at that point.
Yeah, because, seeing potentially Khalif Raymond, I am hearing rumors that David Montgomery will be staying with Detroit. So there is that as well, because he still has 1 more year left on his contract. And obviously Laporta, but we don't know how Laporta is going to come back from his back injury, obviously having to have surgery on it. I much rather have Jameson Williams. I'd love to have Maxx Crosby, even if we give up, say, 2 first rounds and a second-round draft pick instead of Jameson Williams. I would like that. But at the same time, I'd much rather keep Jameson Williams just for the offensive scheme, because of the fact that our defense can be good. It can be. But without that star-studded offense, we saw what happened this past year, where defense was playing decent and the offense just 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. So, like I said, I'd much rather have Jameson Williams still on the roster. Even I was seeing mock trade with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I was like, these guys are out of their minds. But to be fair, I'd also rather have Maxx Crosby than have him go to Chicago, which is also what I'm seeing.
Bring up another edge rusher, and I'm going to ask you your opinion, because I don't know if I would like him even on, Detroit or not, I mean, he just is a banged-up player at this point. That's Joey Bosa. I know he's a Bosa, but his history has just been brutal of injuries. I mean, last year with the Bills, I actually thought he was going to bring a lot to this team, but the same thing happened. He just continuously got injured with that hamstring, and I think one other thing. But would you bring him in for a one-year deal? Is it even worth it?
I don't think it's worth it. I honestly don't think it's worth it because of the fact that you also still do have Al-Qadim Muhammad, who recorded 11.5 sacks this past year. And I'm also seeing that without extending their contracts, I see that Josh Pascal and Levi Onwuzurike will be also returning to the Lions, which should be interesting. But I'd much rather not risk another injury-prone edge rusher because we already have Aiden Hutchinson, who missed 80% of the season 2 years ago at this point. And I'd much rather have someone that's healthy, that's able to produce when need be. Someone like, I brought up Trey Hendrickson as well. Bradley Chubb is kind of hit or miss. And obviously Maxx Crosby. Those guys are all healthy, can produce when they need to. And then also Al-Qadim Muhammad, who can potentially back up either Hutch or whoever that other edge rusher is, if we end up getting another edge rusher.
Yeah, I also don't think the Lions are in a desperate position to go out and get a veteran for for a hopeful case that he will produce something. You just mentioned some names, younger names, that Bosa would just take snaps from at that point. So there really is no point. And the other guy I want to touch on, Bradley Chubb, I can definitely see this. I think Bradley Chubb is still a great player. He does have a bit of a history injury too, but not as lengthy as Bosa. But he definitely is more productive, I would say, than Bosa. So I could definitely get on track if I'm the Lions getting Bradley Chubb.
Yeah, and Bradley Chubb did record 8.5 sacks this past year for a rather lackluster Dolphins defense. So really could be interesting to see what the Lions do in terms of free agency, because we have heard the interviews from Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. They're looking at everything to be able to be in a situation where you can compete in the NFC again, compete with teams like the Eagles, compete with teams like the Packers, Bears, compete with these star-studded NFC teams, and be able to produce, because you just lost the division after winning back-to-back years, and then you dropped to 4th place. So you're essentially probably going to have a cakewalk of a schedule this next year, and if you don't do anything in free agency and you have a similar year to this past year, us Lions fans will probably be calling for your jobs.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation the Lions are in, because they're in that middle ground of we're winning, but we're not Super Bowl ready again. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting who they sign. I'm sure they will get a name, though. I'm interested, very intrigued. If they do get Maxx Crosby, that would be huge. Yeah.
He is a Michigan guy.
Yeah, right, local guy.
So, but kind of on the topic of the Lions, let's go back and take a look, because I know we said with Sam Darnold going on to win a Super Bowl, let's go back to a former quarterback that has won a Super Bowl and just won MVP, who was traded from an NFC North team, that being Matthew Stafford. Now, as a Lions fan, I do like the success that Matthew Stafford has been having, because the Lions back in the 2000s to 2010s did not put him in a situation to win. Yes, he had one of the better wide receiver groups in the entire league, with, just to name a couple people, Nate Burleson, Golden Tate, and obviously Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson. But even had a really good defense, but the coaching scheme was not there. in terms of Jim Schwartz, Jim Caldwell, Matt Patricia. Like, those names were not good coaches for the Lions. But I do want to kind of compare this because, yes, technically Sam Darnold was not traded. He was released. I want to compare the Matthew Stafford trade that took him from Detroit and put him in LA and put Jared Goff from LA to Detroit compared to Sam Darnold getting replaced by J.J. McCarthy, of all people, and going on to win a Super Bowl the very next season. So I don't think realistically they're the same because, how I mentioned, one was a trade, one was a free agent move. And I do feel like Detroit was in a better situation after that trade compared to Minnesota. Because Minnesota went from 14-3 to 9-8 in a year with J.J. McCarthy. The Lions went from, yes, their first year they went 3-13-1, but from there made the NFC Championship game and have made the playoffs 2 years in a row, including winning 2 playoff games, something that before that we had not seen in 32 years. Now, I do think that the Lions were in a better situation due to the fact that they were able to get so many draft picks that included players like Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, Ifeatu Melifonwu, just to name a few. Now, those guys were stars for the Lions, and some of them are still stars, minus Ifeatu Melifonwu. But I think the Lions were in a way better situation after trading Matthew Stafford than Minnesota is with getting rid of Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I was actually looking up Ifeatu Melifonwu because, funny enough, I wanted the Packers to take him, but I'm glad they didn't now after seeing him on the Lions. He's on the Dolphins of all places. But
he wasn't too bad with the Lions. So
Lions are getting rid of you at safety. I mean, kind of saying something.
To put Brian Branch back there, but
I mean, rookie guy. Didn't they take him like the second round?
Brian Branch?
No, Melifonwu.
Melifonwu was third round.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, back to Stafford and J.J. McCarthy. I did see this argument on Twitter, and it did make me think for a second, but after taking some time and hearing you, I kind of have thought about my own conclusion about it, and I agree with you to the fact of the situations are totally different, and it was time for the Lions to give up Stafford, and the Rams were looking to win. They got the piece, for them to go win a Super Bowl, and the timing was, as you said, the ROI was great. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, the Lions didn't get a Super Bowl, but they have a winning culture now. As you said, 32 years, you guys haven't even sniffed the playoffs. So
we made the playoffs. We haven't won a playoff game.
Yeah. So the ROI definitely has worked. Jahmyr Gibbs, star-studded running back. I mean, Jameson Williams. I mean, all these other guys you named, fantastic players now. And yeah, the situations are totally different. And I think for the Vikings end, yeah, they let Sam Darnold go in free agency, and it wasn't a trade, but they drafted a first-round quarterback, as we keep talking about. You're not going to let this guy sit all the time. It's just not going to happen. I understand Jordan Love was a exception to the rule, but you draft a quarterback first round. It's not always smart to just let them sit. And unfortunately, the Seahawks had a fairly, besides playing their own division, don't get me wrong, had a fairly easy road too to get to the Super Bowl. But they're just a better team. They have a great defense. They're in a better situation. It was just the piece they needed, which was the quarterback. And yeah, kind of like the same situation with the Rams. Yeah, they got the coach and the quarterback duo, and they got their piece to go win. So totally different situations, but I understand the comparison, but they're not the same.
Yeah, and I do want to ask you, because we've kind of been flaming the Vikings for the last couple of weeks, Now, I'm sure the comments might agree or disagree with us. That's totally fine. But do you think me as a Lions fan, now fourth in the division, and you as a Packers fan, yes, you got second in the division, but you had some of those games where were very questionable. You guys lost to Cleveland. Do you think we, even as non-players, do you think that we have a right to flame the Vikings as we've been doing?
Well, go about this two ways, Nick. We always have a right to do whatever we want to do, but I think ultimately yes, because the GM really made some questionable decisions there, and now this isn't a picture on Kevin O'Connell or Brian Flores, because look,
right,
they're two mastermind coaches. The organization is just has always been a organization that's not going to pay out big dollars. They did pay Justin Jefferson, of course, otherwise their whole entire franchise would have been up in flames. So that's the only exception. But when it comes to the quarterback position, they never really have gone out and signed a big contract to a quarterback. And to be fair,
right,
I will give them the benefit of the doubt saying that we didn't know what Sam Darnold was. I kept on saying this past season, I'll see the Sam Darnold that we saw. Never happened, really. Maybe one game against the Rams, but it never happened. So
right.
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that the X factor, we just didn't know what Sam Darnold was going to be, if that was a lucky season or what. But it's hard not to blame them because J.J. McCarthy also hasn't produced. And you draft a guy first round, quarterback. I'm not saying first season's going to be great, but the guy looks just very underskilled, very underdeveloped. It doesn't look like he's even close to a first rounder.
I could have told you that.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, Michigan State did get smacked by him when he was in college, but I can tell you that Michigan team did not win because of him. Not even close. Now, we can get into the whole cheating thing, but I'm not going to. Because that's solely up to debate, and I'm not going to go into that. But I will say, yes, I do agree that we have the right to be able to flame the Vikings as journalists and as people that run a podcast on the NFC North. Subscribe if you haven't already, by the way. But I will say, yes, it does come with a track record for the Vikings, because we have seen, at least in my entire lifetime, the Vikings not paying like top tier dollar for players, right? They let players walk that want more money than what they expect them to want. So I will say, yes, we have every right to flame the Vikings, because you have, yes, Sam Darnold has been 50-50 his entire career, but you had the best season that Sam Darnold has had since he was in college.
Yeah, right.
And they went 14-3 and second in the division, almost got the 1 seed in the NFC if it wasn't for the Detroit Lions putting belt to ass on them. And then you go with a first-round draft pick. Yes, he's a first-round draft pick, but at the same time, if you want to win as an organization, you have to look at the quarterbacks side by side. Okay, preseason, we had J.J. McCarthy. He got hurt, right? Sam Darnold plays, we win 14 games. And then you look at, okay, Sam Darnold isn't asking for a giant contract. I would say at that point, have him for one more year. Sign him to another 1 year deal. Let J.J. McCarthy learn under a veteran quarterback for another year, kind of like a Jordan Love situation where he sat behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years. I mean, yes, that is Aaron Rodgers, future Hall of Famer, but have him learn under a quarterback that has been in those situations before where he's had those tough years, has had those good years as well. Have him learn under that sort of veteranship before just moving on.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at Sam Darnold's contract again. It's 3 years, $100 million. That's like 33.5, which is nowhere near the top market right now. If the Vikings were to sign him on a 3-year contract, maybe around the same price, I mean, I don't see a problem with that. As you said, you know, the Vikings just had the best season Sam Darnold's had, and you have a known factor there. I guess you could say that. I know I keep on going back and forth of we don't know what Sam Darnold is, but I think you can't really refrain from 14-3. You know, that just speaks volume to itself. So I think the Vikings definitely deserve everything that's coming to them. I feel bad for Kevin O'Connell, though, and Brian Flores, but Brian Flores did just sign an extension, so maybe that's on him. But
they pay their coaches, but not their players.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Totally. So.
But I want to talk about one more thing, because this is a situation that happened a little while ago, but is obviously a talking point. That is the situation with Ian Cunningham leaving the Chicago Bears and going to the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, this situation's interesting because I don't know how the NFL isn't penalizing the Falcons, because Matt Ryan, who got hired as the president of operations, whatever, basically the GM, Cunningham is actually hired for the GM position, but not, it's called something else. And Matt Ryan in an interview said that Ian Cunningham is making all the decisions for the roster, free agency, etc. Basically doing what a GM does, right?
Right.
And he's going to be determining who that roster is. Basically the GM. So the Bears, and I'm a Packers fan, by the way. I'm actually vouching for the Chicago Bears here that they got screwed up. The NFL is not giving a third-round pick to the Bears because the rule is if a minority candidate gets hired for a promotion to another team, then that team gets like a compensation pick. So it's interesting how he's technically hired as a promotion, but because the Falcons added a new job category or job position, they're not getting that pick. That just doesn't.
Yeah, so essentially what they're doing is, you're talking about the Rooney Rule. So what they're doing is essentially having him as the same position, but doing the job of a general manager, and essentially not saying that it's a promotion. That's the way they're kind of getting around it, is because they're having him essentially same level on the chain of command, but not calling it a promotion, even though he's doing a higher up job, as doing all the duties that a general manager would do, with contracts, free agency, draft, releasing players, that sort of thing. So that's kind of how they're getting away with it. I don't think it's right that they're getting away with it like that, because technically he was promoted when he left the Bears and went to the Falcons. But I would say there's probably a reason why they're getting away with it, is because of the fact that essentially when you look at the sort of chain of command in the organization, he's essentially at the same level.
Yeah, I'm not not really sure how the NFL is looking at it. I'm sure they've definitely gotten involved, but it doesn't make any sense to me because they hired him still as a promotion. It's not like he got the same position. So to me, that just says promotion. Therefore, okay, that's the way I think about it. No matter what the job description is or whatever. But even when Matt Ryan goes on an interview and says that, how do you still get away with it? That doesn't make any sense to me. How the NFL is being accountable for that. I don't know. It kind of sucks for the Bears because they just didn't get any compensation whatsoever.
Yeah, because, I mean, we see it all the time with teams where they get rid of someone or someone moves on to a better position and they get those compensation picks. We saw it with if players get traded to another NFC team from one NFC team, then that team gets a draft pick. But it could also be something in terms of their contract length. Whether Cunningham was up on contract as in his position, and then he's like, well, I'm not going to re-sign with the Bears, I'll just go to the Falcons. That could be a thing where it's a contract negotiation type thing. Or maybe it wasn't even in the clause of his contract, because I do know that even players, they have clauses in their contract that says if they leave for another team in the division, then that team that originally signed them gets a draft pick. So there could be a lot of variables that come into it, but do I think the Bears got screwed? Yes. Do I think the NFL should answer for this? Yes. Do I think the Falcons should give them that draft pick? Yes. Do I think Matt Ryan's going to be a good quote-unquote GM? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the stipulations are, but nonetheless, the Chicago Bears unfortunately miss out on a draft pick somehow. I don't know how that works, but it was an interesting topic because I saw it.
They could bring it up at the league meetings.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be brought up. I'm not sure how it actually all works out, but at the end of the day, we'll see if the Bears get a draft pick or not. There's still time, so maybe something happens.
Yes, so that is going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, we are here every single Thursday with new NFC North content. And make sure to go follow us on all platforms, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And go follow us on Twitter at Gridiron Pod NFL. And we'll see you guys next week.